Hi guys, welcome to the first episode, the first video of our Marine Diesel Engines course. This course is an excellent complement in order to take the ABYC Diesel certification. I hope that at the end of this couple of courses, you'll be ready to take the ABYC Diesel certification. We are going to solve it at the end of each chapter, questions, similar questions to the ABYC certification in order to be prepared to take the certification. In the quizzes per each chapter, I am going to include a couple of questions similar to the questions on the ABYC exam, and I am going to include it in our quizzes, in all the quizzes, a couple of questions related with the ABYC certification. Okay, my friends, this course, the diesel class, I teach this class all the time doing the comparison in between gasoline and diesel, because this is a good reference and this is a good way to understand what happened in this specific topic. For example, in ignition, what happened, how is the ignition in diesel engines and how is the comparison with the ignition in gasoline. For example, the chapter related with the timing procedure. How is the procedure to put the engine on time in a diesel engine mechanical fuel injection? How is the procedure to put the engine on time in a diesel engine electronic fuel injection? And how is the procedure to put a gasoline engine inboard or outboard on time? And I make the comparison all the time, and this is good for yours because in the future you know the difference and you understand why the diesel engines are superior to gasoline engines or electric motors or hybrid. Diesel engines are superior, my friend. At the end of these courses, I hope you understand why a diesel engine is superior in terms of efficiency, in terms of consumption, in terms of production of energy. The diesel engines are superior in comparison with the rest of the internal combustion engines. For that reason, in my opinion, in the future, probably the majority of the automotives will be replaced for electrical cars. Probably. This is 100% sure. But the trucks, the heavy-duty equipment cannot. Why? Because the torques produced for diesel engines is superior. With electric motors, you cannot produce those amounts of torque and force produced for diesel engines. I'm going to explain later that. For that reason, in the future, probably the automotives will be replaced for electric cars, for electric designs. But the heavy-duty transportation, the heavy-duty equipment will be forever and ever, for other 50 years more, with diesel. Diesel is unbeatable, is superior in comparison with gasoline, in comparison with electrical, in comparison with hybrid. We are going to talk in the last chapters about that situation. We are going to start with the book. In the chapter 1, we are going to talk about the friction, about the viscosity, mass and weight, the force, the torque, the power, and the efficiency. This is the last part of this episode. Okay, the friction. What is the enemy of the engines? Why the engines with the time, after 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, are more and more and more and more and more deteriorated. Why the engines have a limit of time? This is basically because the viscosity, because the contact in between metals. When the contact in between metals, when the contact is metal with metal, the destruction of the metals, of the materials, start, and the temperature increase, and the engine is broken. Yeah. When the friction increase, the deterioration increase. How can I avoid excessive friction? Of course, with good lubrication. That's the secret. Keep your engine properly lubricated. For that reason, you hear that you need visit the dealer, you need visit the shop to replace the oil of your engine and transmission periodically, depending on the manufacturer. You need visit the shop, visit the dealer in order to replace the oil, the filters in engines and transmissions. This is mandatory. Why? Because you need to keep the viscosity of the fluid in perfect conditions in order to avoid the contact in between the metals, metal with metal. When the contact in between the metals is metal with metal, it's because the quality of the oil is out. The quality of the oil is not good, and the metals touch one with the other one, and the temperature increase immediately. Yes, my friend, for that reason, there are 3 gauges that any driver, any conductor, any pilot need be at hand all the time. There are 3 gauges that the driver need check periodically. The oil pressure gauge, the coolant temperature gauge, the exhaust temperature gauge, and the RPMs, the tachometer. This is very, very important. Those gauges, especially oil pressure gauge and temperature gauge, are critical. Those are the gauges that should be located, appropriated in the console of the boat in order to be 100% sure that those parameters are in optimal conditions. Alright, we are going to start to talk about the friction. What is the meaning of friction? Friction is the resistance to motion of one object moving relative to another object. Yeah, is the resistance to the movement. This is friction. Simple. And of course, there are more friction in between different type of materials. Depend of the material, depend of the quality of the surface, the friction increase or decrease. The friction is necessary. If not, it's impossible the movement. But the friction internally in the engine is the enemy. Because when the friction increases, it's because the quality of the oil, the lubrication, is a poor lubrication. Friction is always present, of course. The type of surface affect the friction. Rock surface will produce more friction than a smooth surface, of course. Alright, friction of fluids. Fluid friction. There are friction in between the fluids? Yes. There are friction in between the fluid and the pipes? Yes. There are friction in between the fluid and the block of the engine? Yes. There are friction in between the coolant? Yes. What is the meaning of that? Fluid friction is the resistance to an object motion through a liquid or gas. When the motion is occurring in a liquid, this is a viscous resistance. The friction will not be caused by the surface being in contact, but from the oil in between the elements. Yeah, this is a good definition about friction. Friction. Fluid friction occurs in fluids that are in relative movement in between one with the other one. The fluid friction contributes to the increment of drag, the increment of resistance. Drag is the opposition to the movement. Drag is resistance to the flow. Yes, in aviation, the drag is the enemy. And in general, in dynamic of fluids, the topic drag is critical because increased temperature, more drag, more temperature. More drag, more resistance. We are going to study later that concept. Viscosity and boat resistance. Viscosity can be considered as the resistance to flow or to chair within the fluid. Wave resistance is a form of drag that affects the surface of a boat, such as boat, ships, and is reflected in the energy required to push the water out of the way of the hull. A rush surface, more water producing draft. In terms of diesel engines, the life of the engine is directly related with the quality of the oil. The life of the engine is directly related with the quality of the oil. For that reason, you hear that my engine in my car have more than 200,000 miles and the engine is in perfect condition with no leaks. Yes, this is possible. Basically because the people replace the oil periodically, probably before the recommended time for the manufacture, and replace for high quality oils. We are going to talk in the chapter A, I think so. We are going to talk about the qualities of the oil, what is the oil recommended in each specific situation, and what happens if you try to replace the recommended oil for other oil that is more expensive or in your opinion is better. Probably you can destroy the engine. And we are going to talk about that in the chapter dedicated to lubrication. Yes, this is critical, the quality of the oil and following the recommendations of the manufacturer. Always follow the manufacturer recommendations, because if you try to replace the oil for other oil that a friend of you recommend, probably you affect the internal quality of the seals, the gasket, the O-rings, and immediately you have a leak, or you affect the performance of the engine and immediately the compression goes down and the temperature goes up and the engine stops suddenly and you have a check engine code. When you check the code is high temperature. And when you verify, probably the head is bended and the head gasket is damaged. There are a lot of problems related for bad lubrication, but pay attention, my friends. All the problems in an engine, gas or diesel, start with a poor lubrication. All the problems start with a problem of lubrication. Yeah. A problem of lubrication in piston number 1. After that, the temperature in that cylinder increased, and a couple of minutes later, the piston expand and lock the engine, and the engine stop. All the problems in an engine start in a lubrication problem, in a bad lubrication. Of course, after that, the temperature increase, and when the temperature pass the limit, the metals expand and produce catastrophic consequence. All right, there are two types of flow of fluids. laminar flow and a turbulent flow. In general, what is the recommendation? Try to keep the fluid working, running in the laminar flow, not in turbulent. Why? Because in turbulent flow, like this slide, this turbulent flow is propense to ingress of air, bubbles. And the bubbles are the enemy of all the fluids. The intrusion of air is the enemy of all the fluids. Foaming. We are going to avoid foaming. In other chapters, we are going to talk about the fuel systems. In diesel engines, a small bubble of air in the fuel, block the fuel injection pump, and the engine stops suddenly. For that reason, you hear that after the fuel filters replacement, you need bleed the system. You need eliminate the bubbles. If not, the engine not start. You crank, and the engine not start. This is an example. Why? What happens if a small bubble of air enter in the fuel injection pump? We are going to study later. The fuel injection pump is a magic element that increase the pressure of the fluid from 25 psi at the input. In the output is thousands of psi's. Increase the pressure of the fluid dramatically. What happens if in the input of the fuel injection pump, the fuel enter with a small amount of bubbles? What happens with those bubbles inside of the fuel injection pump? What happens when internally the plunger compress the fuel with bubbles? What happens with the bubbles? Expand in diameter. Expand thousands of times and block the system. For that reason, in a diesel engines, the enemy is the air. One of the enemies. Other enemy is the water. But yes, the air is critical. Not only in fuel. In oil, in motor oil also. It's not good. In the coolant. How many times you need added coolant in your car? How many times per month? Never. In the moment that you need added coolant in your car, you need added coolant in the reservoir of the coolant, it's because you have a leak. 100% sure. If you have a leak, you have intrusion of air. If you have a small amount of bubbles entering in the coolant system, what is the symptom immediately? The temperature pass the regular operational temperature and pass. Right now the temperature is higher and probably goes into the red area and probably damage the engine. Yes, you have temperature problems in your engine in the moment that one small bubble of air enter in the system. For different reasons. Because the radiator cap is damaged, because you have a hose clamps broken. There are millions of examples. If you have intrusion of air in the system, immediately the boiling point decrease, the coolant become vapor and destroy the system. We are going to talk later in the chapter about the cooling systems about that. In general, for all the fluids, air is an enemy. Air is no good. For that reason, you need to keep the fluids always laminar, in calm. If the fluid is turbulent, it's propense to suction air. If the fluid is turbulent, is because air is in the system. We need to avoid that the fluid in different type of systems become turbulent. We are going to try to keep the fluids, the movement of the fluid, smooth, laminar. All right, my friends. Okay. Before we continue with those basic concepts, I want to talk a little about the tools that we are going to use, because the tools are a very, very important topic in this class. We are going to use, I need that you start to prepare, I need that you start to create your own toolbox. We need sockets in a standard measurement, sockets in a metric measurements. We need a different type of sockets. 6 points for head balls, hexagonals, or sockets with 12 points for balls with the head that you have on the screen right now. And we have a torque bolt, and we need the Allen sockets for balls with the head, Allen head, like you have on the screen. Exactly the same, we need the metric wrenches, we need standard wrenches, and we are going to use a torque wrench for 3 different dimensions: 1/4 inch, 3/8, and half. I recommend that try to buy a good torque wrench. Yes, you need torque wrench 1/4, 3/8, and half. What type of torque wrench is recommended? We are going to talk later. Probably the click torque wrench is good. It's not expensive. If you want to buy the digital is a good choice, and is a good solution. You remember in the previous class, in introduction, I explained in details all of those tools. This is only a refresh of the tools that we are going to use. We need a good ball hammer. We need a bronze hammer. We need a plastic hammer. We need a rubber hammer. We need chisels. We need blades in order to remove gaskets. And we need impact tools, impact gun, 3/8 and half. And we need adapters to convert from 3/8 to half, or 3/8 to 1/4, different adapters. Don't forget, when you use impact tools, it's recommended socket specific for impact tools. The color of the socket is a black color. Once again, sockets in metric measurements and standard measurements. All right, those tools are criticals. Of course, you need good pliers, good screwdrivers, Phillips screwdrivers, flat screwdrivers, and an excellent multimeter. Don't forget the Fluke multimeter. This is a very, very, very important. The test prop is a good tool, important for a good diesel technician. You need a magnet, good magnet. You need a feeler gauge, excellent feeler gauge. Good caliper for interior and exterior diameters. And that's it. Those are the basic tools that you need in your toolbox in order to start with this career, the career of a marine diesel technician. Okay, one important thing that I want that you be familiarized is with the metric and standard measurements. If you check in the top row of this slide, You have standard measurements, and in the bottom you have metric. I want that you be familiarized with the what size is similar to the other one in the other measurement system. For example, I need that you be familiarized that the half range is similar to the 13. The 7/16 is similar to 11. It's similar, it's not equal. It's similar, it's pretty close, but it's not exactly the same. The 3/8 is pretty close to 10. The 5/16 is pretty close to 8. Oh, the 9/16 is 14. 5/8 is 16. 11/16 is similar to 17, and 3/4 is pretty similar to 19. I want that you be familiarized with those similarities in between one system and the other one, because in some cases, the range at half have a little play, but when you replace the range for 13, no play. My friends, the enemy of the torque procedure is when the socket or the wrench is loose. If the socket or wrench is loose, it's because this is not the measurement appropriated for that bolt. You need to check in the other system, probably with the other socket in different system. You don't have play. If you have play and you apply the torque, you damage the head of the bolts. Please be careful with the head bolts, because in general, in marine applications, the head bolts are corroded. If you use the socket or the wrench not appropriated, you damage the head of the bolt, and the project originally programmed for 1 day, right now is a project for 3 days, because you spend 2 days removing one bolt. Yes, my friend. Remember, in a boat, you don't have a space. In a boat, you don't have a room for special tools. You need be careful when you use the sockets and the wrenches. Use the appropriate wrenches, the appropriate sockets in order to work properly. All right, we are going to finish this episode here, and we are going to start the next episode talking about the mass, weight, force, torque, and efficiency.